All right, guys, welcome back. Special episode of Earn Your Leisure.
It's a fact.
Yes, we have two of the co-founders of Curly Girl Collective and Curlfest, Melody and Simone. And Simone, somebody that's been on the show early.
Early, like episode maybe 15?
Yeah.
I got the number right?
I think so. I'm not sure the number, but it was early.
Yeah, shout out to the hometown.
Yeah. So first and foremost, thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So for people that might not be familiar, right, before we get into it, can you talk about what Curl Girl Collective is and Curlfest?
Yeah.
And how it came about, like how it origin story.
Yeah. Okay. So Curly Girl Collective is an organization that we founded and created with our business partners. And what we're most notably known for is Curlfest, which is one of the largest natural beauty festivals. And essentially, we created a space for a population that literally had no exposure to. And really, it's an opportunity to be educated, celebrated, provide resources for women with natural hair.
So this is, I know last year celebrated year 10.
Yeah.
Year 10.
Yes, it is.
Which is a huge accomplishment. So congratulations to that. It started out with 5 women. What is the situation now? I know you two are here and there are other partners. What do we look like now, present day?
Yeah, sure. So there'll always be 5 founders, 5 beautiful Black women. Right now we have 3 operating members: Melody, myself, Simone, and Sharice, who couldn't be with us today.
Got you.
So you started it and it got really big. I went, I think like 3 years ago in Randall's Island.
Oh,
Yes.
Right. So it's tens of thousands of people there, a bunch of sponsors. And then the pandemic hits. So you have to kind of put things on hold for that because you can't do events in New York, especially at that time during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff happened. So now we're in 2025. You'd made a decision to postpone it this year and reconvene next year, right? So what happened in that timeline and what was the decision to actually, put it on ice for this year and look at 2026?
Yeah, so a couple of things happened in the timeline. I think since COVID, the events business and industry has been quite difficult. It has changed.
And never fully recovered, you know what I'm saying?
Never fully recovered. And it's becoming increasingly more difficult. And this specific year, I think with the political climate, with the rollbacks on DEI, the economy, all these things make the perfect storm. While it's becoming almost impossible to have events kind of that scale without certain levels of like sponsorship backing. And so when we saw a lot of our big ticket sponsors saying, we're not moving in that direction and being very black and white about not having a budget for events that look like ours.
Yeah.
We had to make a decision that we have to take a pause and shift and see what Curlfest could look like maybe without that level of sponsorship backing, really pull the veneer away and talk to our audience about support and what it looks like with entrepreneurship, because there's a narrative out there that is just like super easy. And we have this like big company and we're, doing this with our eyes closed and we're all like super wealthy and rich, but it's still been a passion project even for 10 years later. And so this specific year we decided it was important for us to kind of just take a pause, take a beat, and re-strategize a bit.
Yeah, it's important that it's a reschedule, right?
Yes.
So it's definitely going to be back in 2026. But most people don't understand the business of live events. And I was telling you, I said Mel because we're friends now, that, when you get into this space, it looks great on day of.
Yes.
But it's a full year process to get to show day. Sponsorships is one way that you get money, obviously selling tickets to the event. Break down the business of how it looked for you from year one when it was sitting in the living room to leading up to COVID. I think we were there in 2019. I think right before. That was a massive one. It was in New York Times and I was like so proud. I'm like, I know it. She's from our high school. So talk about the business structure and how it's changed. Obviously, pre-COVID, post-COVID.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Yeah, pre-COVID, post-COVID is literally a thing, right? And it's like, I think, especially anyone from an entrepreneur standpoint or business standpoint could understand sort of the magnitude of what that created for us. I think when we think about our scale is the biggest thing. Like, I think our first one, maybe we had like, we had 2 sponsors on the lawn.
1,000 people.
We had 1,000 people, maybe, mostly, friends, and then, you scale to, let's say, 2019, where there's over 40, sponsors on the lawn. There's activations. There's people flying in from Ghana, from South Africa, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we noticed was that it scaled quickly. And so when you have something and you build the infrastructure, you almost need to have that foresight of like, how far can it go? And it wasn't something that we could have ever imagined that it got to that. So we had to adapt as it scaled and figure out, are there different ways to work? When it came to the pandemic, I mean, we were the largest natural beauty festival in the world, right? And you're like, okay, wait, the whole thing is about being in person and connecting in person. What does that look like when we can't do that on a global scale? Like the world is shut down. That year, we actually did a virtual Curl Fest, which was a success. Erykah Badu came. And so it taught us, what it taught us and validated was that what we were doing was still needed, right? Even in the midst of not being able to have it. But when you break it down in terms of like, what does that mean to produce a live event? Skyrocket, costs skyrocket, everything from porta potties to vendors, all the behind the scenes stuff, right? That doesn't look like, okay, day of, beautiful sunshine, beautiful people, but there's a lot of actual work, logistics that go into place, and everything's a dotted line to finances.
Yeah. And as we've gotten bigger, there's been more and more expenses that we never thought, right?
Yeah.
Increased insurance, all sorts of things that pop up as line items that never existed before when we were a couple thousand strong. So as the expenses continue to increase, the line item for those expenses also, there's inflation in those things too.
Mm-hmm.
But the income doesn't necessarily inflate at the same level.
Yes.
So sometimes we have this dichotomy where we have to decide and make a decision what things need to be cut, what needs to be kept, how do we keep people safe, et cetera. Those are the tough decisions.
And y'all are 5. I'm pre-COVID. This is 5 working women, and this is not your. Was this full time, or did this ever become full time?
No, a lot of people think it's full time for us, but no. And entrepreneurship looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. We were still working women with seasoned careers.
Yes.
Also doing this on the side, so it was working 9 to 5 in your day job, and then the 6 to 4 in the morning the next day, right? Especially in Curl Fest season.
Especially in Curl Fest season. Yeah.
So talk about the DEI cutbacks, like outline. When did that hit? Like, walk us through that whole thing. Because a lot of people, when they heard about it, they couldn't relate to it.
Yeah.
So that was a narrative that was pushed a lot, where it was like, this isn't something that even affects Black people, because we never benefited from DEI. Only people that benefited from DEI was like white women. That's popular on the internet.
Right.
So you guys actually has been affected by it. So can you walk us through that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it affects people in different ways. Our direct impact would be kind of sponsorship impact. And we saw it before, a little bit trickling in before kind of this widespread rollback. We saw, shifts in we don't have budgets for you guys this year. Or, our budgets are tight. What can you do for $10, right? So, I mean, some ridiculous conversations we have to have, right? Like all the time, we're justifying our worthiness all the time. But it's been a little bit egregious sometimes this year and last year about what they are offering or not offering anymore. And then this year was a complete, we're just not moving in that direction at all. We don't have a D&I budget. We don't have a budget any longer for multicultural events. It just doesn't no longer exist. And they've been pretty black and white about it. And we've seen it. And we've seen it quietly happening to a lot of our fellow kind of event producers, but nobody's really talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we thought it was important for us to kind of have this conversation, because a lot of people are suffering in silence and no one is talking about it. So for us, our direct impact was just sponsorship. And sponsorship for us is more than just money. That also is as a part of the activations that are part of Curl Fest, right? And so folks come to the event to experience these activations. Like the big box brands like the Targets, et cetera, will come and build out these beautiful spaces for our guests to interact with, provide input, all of these things. And even, and I'll also add, it's not just like folks who are also rolling back with DE&I. There are also other smaller brands that are affected by just the economy in general and are unable to, maybe the mom and pop beauty brands that are also unable to participate in Curl Fest because they just don't have the funds. And they're also not being funded by other partners that they've had in the past, like the Targets, et cetera.
You're in a unique space. And it's interesting because when we talk about who is a prime target, and we've seen this in the UAE for consumers and people of wealth, and it's Black women.
Yeah.
And when you go to Curl Fest, I mean, it is sea of Black women.
Yeah, beautiful.
And so you said you had to explain to your audience what support looks like.
Yeah.
Can elaborate on that? Are you talking from a standpoint of like, hey, it's not just come to the event. It might be, hey, we need to have community initiative. What does that look like? What did you have to explain to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's layered, right? So first I want to say we have gotten to where we've gotten because of our community. And so at the onset, when we created this, it was all in service of our community. What do we need? And the good part about it is we look like our community. We're literally a reflection of what we've built, right? And so when we talk about what we might need from our community, I think, people probably aren't really thinking about it. Like they're thinking, oh, tickets are out. I'll get a ticket. Come to the event. But support looks like, bringing us up in rooms that we're not in. Support looks like maybe just taking a little beat to understand what it takes from a financial standpoint to put on something at the magnitude that we're putting it on, right? And so support looks like sponsorship. Support looks like understanding, right? Giving grace when we have to make a very difficult decision to, have to postpone. And so I think if we got granular, support is a ticket, literally is purchasing a ticket. If you can't come, maybe purchasing a ticket for a friend or bringing a school, and it's only a fraction of it. But it actually is like, it's really important for us to continue to support by us for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, when with the rollbacks with DEI, yes, a lot of large corporations are not able to fund things that we've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
However, what does it look like if we just funded it ourselves as a community, right? And so we know we've been validated by our community that what we've created is like magic and it just feels good. And it feels good, but it's also education, right? We're very, very mindful of the thumbprint that we're putting on for, the next generation, right? The little girl who will wear her hair natural because now she sees that. And so how do we keep that going?
Mm.
So what's the pathway forward? Because, okay, in the climate, Donald Trump's still president for the next 3 years, right? So the DEI thing probably is not going to get any better.
No.
And it's also a recession. So spending habits is actually decreasing as well, right?
Yeah.
Like that's having an effect on events across the board also. So from consumers spending less money and corporations spending less money, how do you see a pathway forward to actually ramp back up?
Yeah, so I mean, we're working through what that looks like. I think it's just setting expectations that Curl Fest may look a little different in the years. I think a big thing that Melody mentioned was having grace. And part of these conversations is to kind of humanize what it looks like to be an entrepreneur. And it's not this big corporation. These are 3 Black women who are trying and, carrying this business on our backs because it's bigger than us. And so when Curl Fest does look different, right? And the reasons why, let's have these conversations now proactively about why it's looking different. It may not have, 35 sponsors on the lawn. We may have 3, right? But what we do have and will always have is community, which was the heart of the event anyways. And we'll just build it back. I think we've got through COVID, we've got through a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
All of these things and the economy, inflation, all of these things, and we'll get through this too. It's just, being for us, I think for the last several years, we've gone through so many hurdles that we haven't even talked about. Everything that could happen has happened, but we've always kind of take the stance like, let's have like this very polished message, PR message to the audience, and a little bit like ambiguous about what's happening. But I think we wanted to take a shift away from that this year and be a little bit more transparent about the process and the struggles and where we need support. Because it's not a victim story. It's really just like, this is what it is. This is the reality. And we know everyone also has their own reality. Because if you have to decide between a Curl Fest ticket and buying eggs, obviously you buy the eggs, right? Yeah. But we're not asking folks to do that. But support could look like a number of different things. If it's not a ticket, it's a like on a post. Because also the algorithm has changed from a few years ago too. Back from when we used to launch the event and used to sell out 30,000 tickets in 2 days. Now a post could be out for a month and no one sees it. Yeah. And so resharing, using, the different ways to have organic reach is also a way to support us as well.
Was there anything that surprised you? I mean, you're very much grounded in reality, but you've had, I don't even want to call them sponsors at this level, right? Because somebody's with you for more than 5 years. This is partnership.
So
like, were there partners who you were with and you come to, the past couple of years and they're no longer there? Was there a surprising factor, or you just like, this is sometimes how the cookie crumbles a little bit?
Some we were surprised.
Some we were very surprised.
Very surprised. The folks who have been with us since the beginning.
Day one.
And said all of a sudden they can't work with us. And sometimes it's not their decision. We've also saw a lot of businesses get acquired in the last several years. And that's just the nature of the way you do business sometimes too. Nobody talks about like exit strategies and like the goal is sometimes to get acquired, and maybe if that does happen, you may not have the say to say, I really want to do Curl Fest this year. You may not have that level of power anymore. So we've seen that happen with a number of beauty brands in the past that have been with us since day one. So
the other part of it was like a second part of the question is that from a competitive landscape, obviously Curl Fest was, for me, the first and the biggest, and I'm still going to look at it that way. But from a competitive landscape, as you start seeing people pop up with beauty festivals and beauty conferences, and they don't look like you, tell me the realities that you face when you see things like that happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the reality, right? Of if you've built something at some point, at some turning point, there will be something that perhaps maybe mirrors it or it touches it. I think one of the things that has also been interesting for us is, we talk about, obviously, our women are our number one supporter, but the men are there too. Yeah. And so we've had events where we've had activations specifically for men for hair and beards and things of that nature. We also have an empowerment stage, right? And there we talk about very real aspects of our community that isn't necessarily centered on hair, but is it about, empowerment? Is it about self-image? Is it about, mental capacity? And so I say that to say, when you look at the aperture of who our audience is, it actually is larger than just the Black female with natural hair. Mm-hmm. And because of that, that means there's competitive when sponsors, depending on who they are, if it isn't just a Black hair brand, there's choices for them to where they spend their money, right? And so I think one of the challenges that we've had over the years, because we were fortunate enough to be trailblazers in this space, is, brands are now seeing the importance of the Black female, the importance of the billions of dollars of money that is spent on hair care. So they'll maybe have a little portion of their regular event in a pop-up of a hair moment there. And I think everything can still coexist. I think what makes Curl Fest different is literally the community. I think it's our community. I think it's the need, the voids that we're filling, that at scale, I feel like some of the other places or touch points that hair brands may show up, it doesn't feel quite the same as when you support Curl Fest.
Yeah. And I think we get that question a lot. What's your differentiating factor? Somebody else could come up with a festival that looks, and we've had a number of, cease and desist going out in the last several years. Yeah, folks are coming out with the exact name, right? Curl Fest, Guyana, Curl Fest, right? All over, right?
Logos, everything.
So that's another conversation. But I think it's, our authenticity is part of our differentiating factor, and there's no one that can kind of recreate that. And there's something special about the fact that this is for our majority. Our demo is Black women, and it is created and founded and run by Black women. I think that's also something that sets us apart. But it's a challenge. I'd be lying if I say it wasn't a challenge, that when somebody does come up with an event and we're like, wait, this looks like Curl Fest, and then we question, like, are we doing the right thing? Do we need to add something different? Will our fans know the difference and all of these things? And we have these conversations all the time. But there's also something, that I think there's a level of like, there was a level of comfort in knowing that what you created was created by us, and no one else can recreate that magic, something that's maybe not even tangible. Just like no one could create another Invest Fest. It would never be another Troy and Rashad.
Hold on. Look in the camera.
Create another Invest Fest, right? Like they could try, but it'll never be the same. So
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
So what's the state of Black women's hair? Like, as far as when we first talked, I mean, obviously there was a lot of attention. I think Chris Rock did that documentary. And, billions of dollars. Is it the same level of enthusiasm in regards to the business of the hair, or has that kind of died down a little bit?
So the business of hair I want to say it has died down. There's ebbs and flows about like the natural hair movement when it had, just caught on. And I think we're a little bit spoiled being in New York. It's just kind of the norm now, and everybody is so fluid. It's not the norm though around the world either. There's still conversations. There's still conversations being had in boardrooms and corporate walls as well about hair and what is deemed kept and unkempt. And so there's still work to be had. But I think the business of hair care in general hasn't died down at all. It's actually increased, right? I think this last stat I read was like Black women spend 9 times more than any ethnic group in beauty and personal care. And it's just continuing to move in that direction. What that looks like with beauty, whether you're wearing curls or like 20-inch, bust down, it really doesn't matter. Like a Black woman, I think hair is an identifying factor for Black women much more than just aesthetics. It represents like who you are. It represents where you come from. It represents my mother and my mother's mother, and stories and creativity and growing up. And I remember this, there's a nostalgia with, your hair as well. So I don't think that's going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm not sure if 20 inches is a bust down. Gotta be like 30.
30, yeah, I thought 20. Oh, it's been a long time. Right. I know, I'm overdue.
When you give those numbers, obviously you have a wife, you have a daughter.
Yeah.
Braids is expensive.
Everything.
It's just expensive.
Yeah.
And like you said, that number is going to continue to increase as more people look at opportunities for entrepreneurship to create in that space.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something that is important, and it's something that we've actually had looked into when we were creating the event, is the timing of it. Because summer is usually when you see a lot of music festivals.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going on tour. A lot of Black events are happening.
Yeah.
And so you're right smack in the middle of that. And so talk about the timing of it in terms of why you chose to do it when you did, and competing with some of those people who are fighting for those same sponsorship dollars that you are looking for.
Yeah. Well, when we think about New York Curl Fest, it's funny, right? When we first conjured up the whole idea, we called it a picnic in the park. Like if I gave you the flyer that I made back then, we literally said Curl Fest, a picnic in the park, which is kind of ironic, right? Because we called it Curl Fest.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost manifested itself before we even realized what it had the potential to be. And I only bring that up because the grass aspect of it, the summer aspect of it, is actually a pillar for what we've been able to create. And so that puts us in the summer month for New York. Obviously, what goals and aspirations to expand to other countries and continents, we'll have a little bit more leeway in terms of that. When we did Atlanta was in, September?
That's great.
Right?
Yeah, September 20, was that 2019?
2019 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, 2019. Yeah. And so, when we think about, okay, what's the formula for Curl Fest? Like, what has to be true for it to feel like Curl Fest, to not feel like maybe a convention inside, right? Or a symposium. And so the outside sort of grounding of the earth is a part of it. So what that means is tough decisions, right? What that means is early pitching. What that means is continuing to try and, to be honest, convince some partners that there's a need. Our audience is a spending audience. They come with intention. We have stories for days of, partners that come on the grass, whether that's a small business or a large business. They bring in boxes and boxes and tons of product. When it's time to load out, they're loading out with nothing. And so I think when we think about it there's an economic part of it that we can deliver. We know that we have a primed audience who is in need of service. And so you're going to check that box when you come to Curl Fest as a sponsor. I think when you think about, there always will be something. So it's like, okay, well, if we don't do it in June, what if we do it in July or something else? Oh, okay, how about August? There's always going to be something. Mm-hmm. And so I think for any entrepreneur out there, yes, there's ebbs and flows. There's things you have to ship. You have to be fluid. But at the same time, at some point, you have to feel confident in what you've created. Yeah. Otherwise, why wake up and do it? Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing. There's every month, we've entertained, we moved Curl Fest from July before. But there's always something, right? There's always something. There's always proximity to another event. And in the boardrooms where we're not in, they probably have conversations like, listen, we only have money for one Black event this year. Which one is it going to be? Mm-hmm. Right? And so it's really just being steadfast in like what you offer, keeping and maintaining those relationships with the partners that you have so far, and just moving forward with what you believe that you feel like is offering the most value to your audience and your consumer. Everything else, like, there's always going to be competition. There's nothing really much we can do about that. But it doesn't. I want to say that it's easy either. Like, that's
it's not at all.
That's probably part of like what is part of the nature of business ebbing and flowing over the last few years as well for us, and not really kind of getting back to where we were in 2019 yet. We will, but not yet. But that's part of the conversation too.
So what is the business model to expand, like, even outside of a physical event? Like, are there like tangible products? Is there an online community? Like, is there anything outside of just the one event?
Yeah, so that's a great point. We do have, some merchandise that we offer. What we are working on this year, and part of the kind of strategy is to like put more time and effort into the other ancillary things, like having a membership. We already have a community, right? But we want to like amplify that in a bigger way. So we're working on that, and hopefully that will be launched also with next year. All of the other things. I always say to Melody that, Curl Fest it's our biggest, identifying part of our brand. But sometimes festivals and things of that space may not be the money maker. Somebody can have an event that large and bring in millions of dollars, but the money maker is the t-shirt sales and the food and beverage and your membership community and whatever ancillary things that you can branch off of your main kind of like identifying brand position.
Yeah. I think we have a plethora of ideas.
Yeah,
We are no shortage of ideas over the years. I think if we having a real conversation, it's the capital. And so even the yes, Curlfest is our tent pole. A physical event is our tent pole. I still will forever think there's such power in human, in-person contact, right? And so, I don't see a world in which that doesn't exist. But when you talk about the other pillars, right? Whether it's a product, whether it's merch, whether it's, online sessions, there's still capital that's needed to make those happen as well. They're almost little subsets of businesses. And so some of the work that we have been continuously doing is strategizing on how do we increase capital.
One of those ways is, and I'm sure as you're growing this business and people are seeing the size of the audience, I'm sure people are approaching you, trying to figure out how they can acquire the brand, perhaps merge with the brand and add it to their portfolio. Mm. How have those conversations gone for you post and pre-COVID?
Yeah, we've had conversations fairly early on, even I think prior to Curlfest, maybe in our first year of Curlfest, we had investors probably approach us. And, those we've gotten pretty close with conversations with investors. We still own 100% ownership of our business, which is also, I want to make sure that it's clear. But it's difficult, right? Because it's a learning curve for us. We have been built. We didn't start out this business thinking it was going to be a business. We started out this business. It was something that we felt like we needed. It was a hobby. Let's do this fun thing. We need this community, and it turned into a business. So it was, and sometimes it happens that way. And so there was a little bit of like learning and unlearning that had to happen. We're building the plane as we fly it. And so if you asked us maybe 6 years ago, like, what's your valuation for your business? There'll be some off the wall numbers like our partners probably would have said at the time, like, I'm not getting an investor until we get, $200 million valuation, which is not realistic, right? And so I think part of the conversation is really, what are the real valuation numbers that you can assess? What is the exit strategy or something that you thought of that is probably something that we think of more lately than we have in the past, because we built this baby up, and we start to stop calling our business the baby, because there's a connection there. As much as we feel like it's much more than a business, it's still a business, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's still impact that you can do even if you move in different directions. So I think the investor conversation is something we still get approached daily. We're working on making sure that we have the best numbers to back up any valuation that folks kind of try to offer us. I think as Black women, we also have the barrier to have to overprove our worthiness in those spaces. Mm-hmm. And so we'll get lowball numbers all day, right? And our counterparts may get, like some crazy, 9-figure valuation for something that hasn't made $1 in profit, right? And so it's a space that we are still kind of navigating, and it's still a learning curve for us. But
yeah. I mean, the only thing I would add is there's also, when you think about any partnership in any capacity, if you're still going to be a part of it, whether it's, sometimes the approach where the offers were majority, right? And so we do know to a certain degree what that means, right? And so knowing communities at our center and what we've done to build this empire that we've been able to create, this movement that we've been able to create, how do you scale, grow, potentially do, a shared investment, but also keep the integrity of it? And that's a very real thing. And I mean, most, within our community specifically, Black community specifically, we can all think of numerous brands that were for us, by us, and they've, sold to big corporations, and there's mixed feelings from the community as to whether or not it was right choice or not. Has their product changed? That's a big headline. This is no longer the same. They sold out.
They changed the formula.
Yeah. And so, of course, life is about change. We're not expecting to look and be exactly what we were. However, I think when we think about a big decision like that, because when we started, it wasn't a business, that means the drive, the passion, all of that, what our core isn't just a money driving thing, right? And so, if it was, we would be doing it full time. But we haven't been able to do it full time, right? In terms of paying our personal salaries and things of that nature. But what we know is what we created is bigger than us. And that's the fuel that keeps us going. But when you think about, a potential investor, I think it is important that whatever that partnership is, that there's core values that are shared, that we feel as if the next evolution of what we built will at least come from the same space.
Yeah.
What about the elements as far as rain, stuff like that? How does that play in insurance and, doing an event? We never did an event outside, and one of the reasons why is because of that, right? So how does that play in?
Yeah, it's tough.
Sleepless nights.
I'm the director of operations, right? And she's the creative director for the business. It's super tough. There's so much unpredictability in events in general, and adding the weather is another element that it's sleepless nights. We've had, oftentimes venues that we work with, there's no rain day, right? That's it. And then, we have insurances that that are enormous numbers that we have to pay for in case that there's a natural disaster or a weather condition where folks have to evacuate, and then they may get some of the portion of the ticket sales back. We may get that, but we wouldn't get fully 100% reimbursed at all. It would be a significant loss even with the insurance. And some weather conditions, we've gone through every weather condition.
Oh yeah, remember
the first one, the monsoon, right? Yeah, it was literally through God's grace, no one got hurt. But probably one of our very first Curl Fest back in Prospect Park.
Yeah,
we don't really talk about it much, but we have pictures of those times. And right when Curl Fest was about to be over, when we had a great day, and then the sky opened up, and it was literally a hurricane that came through.
Yeah,
trees falling, everybody had to run to safety, and we couldn't clean up the place. The cleaning crew had to leave, right, and everyone had to go run to safety, things flying literally everywhere. We get back to. Should I tell the story? It's over. So we get back to, 4 a.m. Okay, guys, stop raining. Let's go clean up. And it's a disaster. It is a disaster. There are things everywhere. At that time, Curl Fest was free. And so folks could bring in whatever they could bring in, right? And the one thing they called it in Brooklyn was they called them the dog walkers, right? There's a demographic of folks.
Yeah.
That would be up at 5 a.m. Just make sure the place is clean, that Prospect Park is back to where it used to be, what it looks like before the first dog walker hits the grass. And that did not happen. And all we saw were the dog walkers out there with pictures with our brand on the ground, right? Taking pictures and sending them to all these communities all over social media. All of their, not in my backyard communities that were like, we don't want this kind of debauchery back in our space, even though it was literally a hurricane, right? And so those are the types of things that started Curl Fest, right? And it was like, we can never get through this again. We were in tears, picking up trash with our hands, they might have been we didn't have security at that time. So there was a liquor bottle next to a Curl Fest banner. That's what they associated, right? Yeah. That they didn't associate community and beautiful spaces and family event. They associated, this event of color that came into our backyard and destroyed our park. So we had to get through that. you know,
Which we did.
We did. We had
We
to
did.
rebuild the brand and move, right?
Mhm.
We begged and begged and begged to stay in Brooklyn. We still here to this day. 10 years later, we hear people saying, it's never been the same since you left Brooklyn, right? And the fact, the thing about it is, I mean, listen, I'm such an open book, and I've gotten spanked for saying too much, but I don't care. Like, you know, we have tried. We went all the way up to, you know, the tops of the offices to beg to stay in Brooklyn and Prospect Park specifically, and they just don't want our type of event in that space.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't allow us.
They
to
wouldn't
enclose it.
allow us to enclose
And
it.
so obviously, once we scaled beyond, you know, 800 people,
Ticketed event.
there's safety, right?
Yeah.
And so every human that touches on the grass, we are responsible for.
Right.
And so, yeah, the sea of crowds, when you see our videos and you actually don't see the grass because it's humans,
Mhm.
every single human
Yeah.
we're responsible for.
Yeah.
And so we had to make decisions that have their safety, our safety at the forefront.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the great part about a story like that is when that happened, it felt like there was no return.
Yeah.
It felt like close up shop, how are we ever going to come back? And we did.
Mhm.
And we will continue to do it. So when we talk about like, what is the landscape now? Okay, DEI, the Orange Man, like all of it, it's roadblocks. It's roadblocks, and we will figure out a way to push past it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does Curlfest, is it synonymous with New York? Does it have to stay in New York? I know you did Atlanta. What did we learn? What did you learn from moving it to a different city? Right. We did InvestFest London. We learned a lot.
Yes.
Right. Like it was like, okay, obviously it's a shortened, more concise event, but there was a lot of different things. You're doing something international. Is that an option as well?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, we always loved, like, it's the birthplace of Curlfest to have at least one Curlfest here. But yeah, Curlfest on the road for sure. What we learned in Atlanta is that we have a beautiful community in Atlanta too that loves us there, right? It's probably like the hair capital of the world, of the United States at least. And you know, they loved us there. They opened us with, you know, open arms in Atlanta, and we love to come back. We love to be in a lot of places, and you know, that's on the map.
Well, thank you guys for coming. Before we leave, tell her, what can they expect as far as, you know, 2026? Is there any waiting list, website, like, you know,
Pre-sale?
social? Yeah, all of that stuff.
Yeah, all those things. So there's a pre-sale on curlfest.com, CURLFEST. Should I talk to you guys? There's a pre-sale on curlfest.com, special for folks who are riding for us for Curlfest 2026. We need your support. We need your support early, right? And if you can spare, you know, buy a ticket, tell your friends, share that Curlfest is coming back. You know, understand like who is behind the brand, that we're here for y'all, and we're not going anywhere. We're also working on smaller kind of community initiatives this year as well. So look out for announcements on Curly Girl Collective, our Instagram page. Sign up to our mailing list on curlfest.com and buy a ticket.
Yeah. And I want to say that we appreciate y'all. And Mel, I told you this before, Simone, we probably had this conversation that watching you guys create an event helped inspire us creating events. And there was some details when we went to Curlfest, when you brought the kids from the community center, right? And I was like, wow, that's incredible. I was like, we're doing an event, we got to do the same. And so we've been flying kids down from the community center to InvestFest. So we appreciate y'all for kicking down the doors.
Thank you.
And we're going to support you any way we can.
Thank
right?
you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course.
All right, guys. Thank you for rocking us. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.